one of the challenges that happens in these situations is like your system becomes so mangled, and you're like, why can't I tell where my MQLs are coming from, or where my leads are coming from, or like how come the reporting's off, or how come things are messed up? And it's because, as the artist that you alluded to, like a lot of times before I even pick up an instrument, I think about frameworks. I think about like how the thing is going to go into the song, what's the song that I'm trying to write, and things like that. So you do a lot of the pre-planning before you actually touch anything, versus the, hey, let's just stand stuff up and like do
Let's
these
just go.
things and put leads in here and it'll be fine, right?
And we're live. Welcome back to the show, back on track. We are here kicking off the new year with one of my faves. Quincy Johnson joined us on Tea Time with Tech Marketing Leaders many moons ago. And ever since, I've been on a mission to work with him. And we have figured it out. And for the last few years, we have teamed up across multiple accounts and helped them bring their marketing ops to tier one quality. And we're going to walk you through all of that. Before I dive in, just a little background on our friend here. Quincy Johnson, a good friend of mine, as I've already mentioned, is looking for my notes. Here we go. Uh, joining me is a man who knows a thing or two about rhythm and flow. Literally. He's a former musician turned marketing ops heavyweight. He is the owner of Magnetic Theory Consulting, a lecturer at UT Dallas, and the host or previous host. We'll have to, I wonder if the show's still going. Quincy, you're going to follow up on that. Compound Growth Marketing Show. He's here to help us tune up our engines for 2026. Please welcome Quincy Johnson to the show. Quincy, as always, welcome back.
What's up? Thank you for having me. I didn't know how embarrassing that intro was going to get. So yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Love my intros. Are you still podcasting?
I am not. I'm in the process of revamping and thinking about the subject matter for the podcast that I want to launch. So yeah, it's coming soon.
Exciting. I'll be following up with you on that for sure. For sure. We got a tight 20 here, y'all. So I'm just gonna dive right on in. Quincy, let's start with a reality check. When you look back at 2025, what was the one marketing best practice that actually stopped working? And looking ahead at 2026, what is your number one prediction for where the biggest opportunity lies for small businesses?
Oh man, that was is an a big question. um, I Yeah, no, that's a really good question. The thing that stops working. I would say blanketed demand lead gen tactics, and like the generic, right? Like so, like we're in this age where we can get, there's data everywhere, right? And so the people who don't really know their target, like target ICP, aren't really speaking the language of the people that they're trying to speak to, and they're just trying to do the spray and pray, like in marketing cliche terms, right? Like I think people are really starting to realize that everybody knows they're being marketed to, and like I want to understand and feel like you're talking to me and that you understand me, and so like I think, um, what I've seen, is the realization that that's not a thing anymore, right? So,
Yeah.
and then like predictions for 2026, I think people uh, are going to be able to be a whole lot more efficient, with, um, with processes, and I think like that efficiency will lead to like how we can be more thoughtful about those kind of personalization things, and how we can get out of the mindset of, one of the things that I dislike, and especially in performance marketing, you probably know this, is like reporting to clients on impressions. Oh, we got like 50 million impressions and like your campaigns are doing great. And it's like, well, what does impressions actually mean? Yeah, what does impressions actually mean? And so getting comfortable with like, okay, cool, like we only got maybe 500 impressions, but think about the quality of traffic and the people that are coming through our funnel, et cetera. So
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, the blanket marketing tactics are definitely didn't work in 2025, are definitely not going to work in 2026. But did they ever work?
not at all.
uh yeah, I think it just became very, very clear. Like they weren't ever working, and it's very, very clear that they're not working. Love it. Data is definitely going to be at the forefront of everything. Data was always at the forefront of everything that we've ever done, and in working together, it's definitely become sort of the backbone to all the questions that we sort of ask each other of why is this important and where is this going and what is the data telling us of how to make this better. And I think we'll get into it, but I think AI is going to be an interesting role in that. Let's talk about you and me working together. We primarily help smaller businesses and
Hmm.
startups who often think operations is a word reserved for bigger corporations. Can
Mm.
you define the role of marketing ops in a startup or small business and why it's dangerous to hire your ops too late?
Yeah. Oh my God. Like, this is a really amazing question, because I have worked with a startup recently. They were under like venture capital, right? And so, like, ob- a lot of times in those situations, like the capital partners are just thinking about getting stuff off the ground. They're like, oh, we don't really need this, or we don't really need to do this, or just upload this sheet here and it'll be fine and we can figure it out later. And so, like, one of the challenges that happens in these situations is like your system becomes so mangled. And you're like, why can't I tell where my MQLs are coming from, or where my leads are coming from, or like, how come the reporting's off, or how come things are messed up? And it's because, as the artist that you alluded to, like, a lot of times before I even pick up an instrument, I think about frameworks. I think about like how the thing is going to go into the song, what's the song that I'm trying to write, and things like that. So you do a lot of the pre-planning before you actually touch anything, versus the, hey, let's just stand stuff up and like do
Let's
these
just go.
things and put leads in here and it'll be fine, right? So
It will not. It will not be fine. That was one of my favorite projects that we worked on. I tell this story all the time. Quincy is my marketing ops guy for the law firm that we work with, and the very first thing we did, and the thing that really propelled their 2024 growth at the very end of the year, was marketing ops. I was like, all right, Quincy, they're sitting on
mhm.
12,000 contacts. What do we do? And we just shook that tree with some nurture sequences. We revamped their newsletter, and the end of 2024 did better, 26% better year over year, um, giving their year a 12% boost because their first half of the year had just broken even. So, like, the the too late is definitely an is a problem, but also kind of an opportunity if you look at it from that lens. So yes,
And
to
I, yeah, I was gonna say, I think one of the things, and sorry to interrupt, I think one
no,
of
I
the
love it.
things that's very interesting is that, like, you want leaders need to be able to tell the story as to why things are working, right? And like, you can't tell, like, if your ops isn't set up, if it's not funneling the right way, your reporting's gonna be crap, right? And so, like,
Mm-hmm.
you're not gonna understand why what you're doing is working or isn't working, or all these false signals, and like, should we test something else, if the piping's not there? So.
Let's talk about attribution for a second because I literally just had this conversation with a client. Hi, Trevor Van Warden. Appreciate you're here. Yes, ops early for the win. Um, I literally just got off a call with a client because he was like, I don't understand. I'm looking at this report and it says that we booked 20 meetings, but we have 23 qualified leads. So if I do 20 divided by 23, that's kind of insane. So you're telling me that we booked like 90% of leads. I'm like, no, we didn't book 90% because the leads that booked this week probably came from previous weeks. Like looking at it from a week to week basis is
Yeah.
actually incredibly misleading. We only booked 13 this week from the 23, not 20. And he
Mhm.
just couldn't quite like wrap his head around it until I showed him a dashboard and walked him through it. But let's talk about data and the importance of it being right and how to even look at it. So how do you walk clients through how do you explain this notion of attribution and in making sure that the data is A, correct, and then B, how you look at it?
Man, these questions are crazy, by the way. And so,
Get your brain working early in the
um,
morning, firing it off.
yeah, like, one of the things that, as we think about attribution, and I love this because I think a lot of clients or a lot of companies get stuck in this the last touch thing, right? And it's like, okay, cool. So, and it's the last touch, and it's time boxed by this week, and it's like, okay, cool. So like this week we're up on conversions to the thing, and like it's paid, blah blah blah, and then like last week we were down, and it's like the question I always have, and I always try to relate is, okay, did these people come in last week and now they're converting this week, and so it looks like it's up, or like what's the cohort? When are they coming back? Like 3 months later? Like, is there some way that we're tying the things back to like try and identify the user and their path, and then try and predict signals of like up and down and frequency and source and channel to know that like, hey, for if we look at all our closed one deals and where their original source is and where their last touch is and before conversion or whatever, like we know that like a lot of people come in on like Meta, for example, and then they end up closing on email, or maybe they close direct digital on the site, and so and things like that. So like reframing from like this last touch and this like time box and like week over week and like, oh, we're down, oh, we're up, oh, we're down again. It's just I think is the biggest thing that I do for clients, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, I think trying to understand, I always look at the way I look at it, and you're going to tell me if I'm right or wrong, which is going to be so great because you're totally the expert in this, and I'm flying by the seat of my pants when it comes to marketing ops. But the way that I sort of approach it is, what created the lead?
yep.
Where did they come from that actually like helped them do a thing? Was it booking a demo? Was it downloading? I know some people still don't download, some people do. Was it a contact form? Like, what created the lead, and from which channel, and from which piece of content thing? And then how many touches did they need, and what were they looking at, and what was their journey
Mm-hmm.
from that creation to then actually
Yep.
booking? And how do we recreate that over and over again? How long did it take, and how do we make it shorter? Is sort of how I think about attribution. But it's really hard, especially for smaller businesses that are a little bit more transactional. Man, it's really hard to help them sort of, should they care? Like, we as marketers care about that. I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of the times we get, this is where marketers sort of get a quote unquote bad rap, is because there's a lot of things we care about
Yeah.
that, do we really need to be having that conversation with CEOs and board members? Or, you know, how do we make sure we're telling the right story without confusing them, but then also like, what should we pay attention to versus what we should be telling the board?
Man, and I'm gonna go really vibey here, and I think that like the board only cares about like obviously like, are we making revenue, and um are we putting our energy in the right place, right? Like, and so like if we can get to be like, hey, like all our like we're aware of our surroundings, we know where energy is flowing in and out, and like maybe we should invest more here, and like relating. And again, this goes back to why you need ops, is because like we can take that of our closed one opportunities, like where are they coming from, where like is like the cost per acquisition like cheaper,
Mm-hmm.
like and more efficient, or is it actually even more efficient, or is it just look lower because like the quantity, et cetera, and things like that. And so like just leveling up, being like, hey, we should spend more energy here, this is where we need the investment, like based on this investment we can likely forecast this amount of return, like based on those efforts, right? So I would, that's how I would relate it up,
Yeah.
uh up level. So
Yeah, forecasting for sure, I think, is pretty magical, but you do need all the data behind it. And I think it's really hard to, um, people ask us for forecasting all the time, and it's like, we need all your, we can give you forecasting, but we're going to need all the data to help us get there.
mm,
And marketing ops is definitely the keys to that castle. Um, let's talk about the Holy Trinity: cold email, nurture, and newsletter. At least I call this the Holy Trinity because it's the three things that you and I have touched across all of our clients,
mm,
to some degree. Uh, cold email with AI flooding inboxes, how do we stand out right now in terms of, is cold email? I got on a pedestal of a year or two ago, and I said that cold outreach was dead. Um, I retracted that since, because I feel like I actually responded to a couple cold outreaches recently because they were so spot on. It actually probably should have terrified me more than anything that it was
Mm.
so spot on. But I feel like with AI, it's making a resurgence and getting better and sort of making this comeback because of it. What's your, I can only talk about this from my personal experience and a handful of clients. You're seeing a lot more than me being the expert here. So you tell me, was cold email almost on the verge of death and now making a comeback? Was it never actually dead? And what should we be doing in terms of cold outreach these days, given AI?
Yeah, I think it's yeah. I was gonna say I think it's a mixed bag, right? Like, and so like I think it works if we go back to this data thing or like understanding your ICP. It works if you actually understand who you're trying to talk to, right? Like, and then you um, truly know like your brand, your product, your customer pain points like in and out, and you can kind of speak to those. And I think it's really funny that you brought up that you responded to a couple, because like the ones that you responded to, like again, they knew your pain points, and then so that
Yeah.
caused us, as we're working on like sequences and things like that for together, like to be like, hey, like I know what our pain points are based on like the people that we have as customers. Again, closed one data, we're taking that insight, that first party data, and then we're trying to poke and prod at those kind of like pain points to be like, hey, I'm speaking your language, I know where you probably are hiding in under your desk trying to figure out how I'm going to make things work right now. Just give us a call, sort of thing. And so like I think that I think that's the big thing, is like understanding like who you're trying to talk to. And I don't think it's dead. And I think with the AI thing, um, I think we have to build in things to catch signals. Like there are people who are doing intent, like they're searching and like they're surging on these things. They're on your site, they're digging around. And if we can identify those signals and we have a system set up, like I think that is like a warm, essentially, prospect. So it's not really cold email, but you've never emailed that person before. Like, hey, how can we take that signal and be like, not creepy, like I know you're digging around, but like still to to that point, like I understand, like we talked about like the revenue chasm, I think is what you called it, right?
Mm.
Like, and so like we know that you're probably in this situation and you're looking for growth and things like that, still speaking that language but
Million
knowing
too.
that they're researching, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I have to say, as somebody who's been, we've been working for a while, and we've wired up a couple cold email systems for clients, and knowing the ICP is the absolute most critical part in terms of those signals. And I can attest that having a marketing ops person, like especially with all the tools that are out these days, like there, I it is a forest, and you need an expert. Like, don't just think you're going to start standing up a cold email outreach campaign. And there's so many nuances to just making sure that the emails are correct and that you're not going to blow up your domain name. And there's just, and then making sure that you have that right ICP and that right audience. There's just a lot to it. I've watched Quincy behind the scenes wiring it all up, and oh man, I'm so glad that I have an expert at my wings. Please, 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 for your own safety, if you're thinking about cold email outreach, definitely bring in an expert to do it. It is it is hard. It is hard to get right. I gotta say, like, it's almost it's almost harder now thanks to AI.
yeah, and I think one of the things that's actually very interesting to that point is like there is the sending of the email, and that's fantastic. But then like the orchestration of like once you get a signal or a bite on the line, to use a cliche fishing term, right? Like how do you then engage or reel them in, or like soften the blow to where you can actually directly reach out to them? And like a lot of like what we've built is
Such a
just
good point.
the playbook of, hey, like they're responding, they're engaging, I send you a task area and I'm like, hey, you need to reach out to
Yep.
this person on LinkedIn, or you
And I
need
do.
to comment on the thing, or you need to engage and like sort of introduce yourself, so that they're like, oh, like okay, I'm putting two and two together, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is really crucial, is that it and it's everything we talk about at MKG and by why it's so important to have an operating system because it is never just one thing. Um, and why I call it the Holy Trinity because you have, and we're going to talk about the other two in a second, but you have cold email outreach, you have nurture, and you have newsletter, right? And the importance of all three of those plus a pronged approach. I love that Trevor's here because he's definitely on the sales side. So, being able to ping your sales team to say this person has opened the email, they've been on our website, go connect with them on LinkedIn and see if you can get a conversation going because they're warmer now. Makes that a lot easier to do.
And Trevor was gonna love this. Hey, we need feedback from sales. Like, is this a quality person? Are you
Yes, we
getting
do.
contacted? Like, what are you getting from the customer as far as like readiness and like can we adjust the signal? And so I think it's always optimizing too.
Yes, the iteration piece for sure. The data, come back to the data and making sure the data's clean so you know what you're iterating on. For sure. Let's talk about nurture. Where do people usually drop the ball here? Is it timing? Is it content? Um, a lot of times people will sign up for a white paper or some sort of download asset, and then they don't. I've seen clients not do anything. Like I said, we had a client who was sitting on 12,000 contacts. They were like doing a newsletter, and that was it. So talk do you see that often where people collect email addresses like it's candy but then they don't actually like do anything? Is that pretty standard?
I think people are confused about nurture versus let me punch you in the face with a product every email. Um, and then so, like, I think nurturing is meant to inform, slowly guide people upon their like learning journey, right? And then, hey, like we do offer this product if like blah blah or like adjusting the nurture based on they're coming back to your site, you're seeing signals of like intent, they're going to like a pricing page, they're going to like resources and things like that, and like maybe it's now let's one-on-one outreach and things like that and hand it over to sales. But like I've seen a lot of companies, they just say, hey, I'm going to sell, sell, sell every email. And hey, buy, hey, book a demo, hey, buy this thing. And I think that's where people drop the ball with nurture. They're trying to sell in every email.
I love that. I mean, we've figured out what I love about our sequences of how we use nurture that I think is really thoughtful is based off of signals, like you've been saying. So we see a couple signals fly. We assign, you've done a great job of creating scoring. And then based off of those being engaged contacts, then we drop them into a nurture sequence that's more around storytelling.
Yep.
So introducing what it is that this company does, and then telling client stories around that, and then calling them to action over the course of weeks. I just absolutely love that. We do that. We do all these are the playbooks. These are literally the tracks, guys, that we run for all of our clients together, whether it's cold, with nurture, and with newsletter. Let's talk about newsletter for a second because I feel like that is a also another sort of resurgence, so to
Mm.
speak. Why is owning your audience and having a newsletter more critical in 2026 than just having social followers?
Building a relationship, man. Like I really think that like there's a lot of noise on social, right? Like, and so people are. I'll use like the weight loss thing, just from a like a consumer standpoint, right? There's so
Yeah.
many influencers, and it's like, oh, you can eat this, or oh, you can't have carbs, or oh, keto is the way, or oh, these things, and so like people get like distracted, like in every way, and so like focusing attention, like becoming a thought leader in your space, and I think that this is awesome for when we think about Rotowski, in the fact that like they have a very niche product that requires a lot of education, and the
Mm-hmm.
thing that they do, like some newsletters isn't it's not always going to be relevant for you, but the content that comes through, I think more times than not, like is stitched together based on
Mm-hmm.
phases of your life, right? Like, so you can be in this phase of your life, and I'm in my like early 30s. I'm starting to build assets, but now I'm seeing this information about like, man, I need to be planning like for a late stage in life and things like that. And so, like, I think newsletters are fantastic. And we've even used newsletters in that sense to stitch together into a nurture because it's like, hey, um, this person is engaging at this particular thing on the content poll for the newsletter, and now we need to nurture this person, right? So
Yeah, it's an awesome signal. Nurture the newsletter. I couldn't believe the power of what that newsletter did when we revamped it. It was night and day, and in terms of like Monday's always our best day in terms of bookings because the newsletter goes out on Mondays. So I know Monday's going to be a good day. So yes, I think that, and that's because of just that consistency of showing up and saying something really thoughtful.
And I will highlight that we did have to experiment with days of the week of sending.
Yes, we did. That's true.
Because understanding our customer, again, trying to figure out. So we went from Tuesday, we went to Thursday, we went Friday, and so
Wednesday,
like,
one point, yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah. We had and time of day too,
yep.
right? So luckily they're East Coast, so we figured out that 7:30 a.m. was spot on, and use that for all of our clients. Now all of our clients, our emails go out at Monday at 7:30 Eastern time, and then we have a West Coast. We have one client who's also got a bunch of people on the West Coast, so we send a separate email for the West Coasters at their 7:30 a.m. because we just know that that's Mondays at 7:30.
Another reason you need ops to figure these things out.
It is. You got to test and learn. And
Yeah.
it's so the testing piece is
Yeah.
just so critical in setting that up and knowing when you're doing what and for how long and what's happening. Quincy, this was not long enough. I could talk to you all day. But I'm so grateful that we were able to share some tracks with folks on how we got our own clients back on track in terms of their marketing ops. There's so much more that marketing ops can do beyond email. We focused on email because it's what we work together on, but you should know that marketing ops is just so critical. Quincy touched on the dashboarding and the data piece, but they're integral for that. If you have in terms of like the customer experience side of it, there's so much that marketing ops does in streamlining, and it just goes on and on and on. I could talk about marketing ops for days, especially with you. So thank you, Quincy, for joining me. We'll have him back, folks. We'll have him back. But if you have any more questions in relation to setting up cold email or getting after a newsletter or figuring out what that scoring should be for those nurture sequence, be sure to reach out to us. We are here for you. Quincy, where can people find you?
I am on LinkedIn posting consistently, thanks to Carrie. Magnetictheoryconsulting.com.
There you go. There you go. For everyone listening who wants to fix their funnel, be sure to reach out to Quincy and find him on his website. We are back on track to helping you build a better business. I'm Carrie. That was Quincy. Go execute on what you learned today, and see y'all next time. Thank you all so much.